I kind of look at K-Fan Radio locally here as like we look at ESPN nationally. I'm not a horrible fan of it, but, the one guy that was under this morning said, you know what? We got to get back to the presumption of innocence, man. We got to innocent until proven guilty, Reggie. Cops, there's something going on with the training. There's something going on with this nonsense. They're trigger happy, reactionary. I know it's a tough world. Like I said, I got friends that have cops. I've heard some of the horror stories out there on the streets, and I get it. But for these cops that are killing people, I think I heard so far we've had over 500 cop shootings in the United States in 2016. Of those, 150 are blacks. And, and I get it. People go, oh, well, there's more white people in the country. And I get all that nonsense, man. But, I'm black. That's what I'm thinking about. My son is half black. We had to talk again today before he just left, before we started the show. Pisses me off. We got to have these talks, man. It really pisses me off that I got to sit here and have this type of discussion with a kid who, in the end, may not be doing anything wrong, but being accosted just because some punk cop is bored.
What I found interesting is I was reading and they said that some homeless man called 911. Now, my first thought is, how the hell do you have a damn phone if you homeless? Who the hell are you calling? You know what I'm saying? Like, that it just struck me as odd that they said that he asked the guy for money and he garnished a gun, and then the homeless man somehow got a phone and called 911.
Right. And Sluggo brings up a good point here in the chat room. The Hammer. Who can kill someone like that in cold blood? Answer: the descendants of the savages who dragged your ass over here. That's who.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
No, I was going to say what I thought was actually I was surprised is that the store owner, who was of Middle Eastern descent, was actually pretty, as truthful as he could be. And I know he was a little bit nervous because you always worry about some sort of repercussion. But he basically said the guy was out in front of his store on a regular. They were friends. He sold CDs or DVDs or whatever. And he, never posed a problem, never had any issues. And, I thought that was very telling. And I guess his video shows something, completely, other parts of the story. But Vince, what's also disturbing is you and I, we pretty much have a similar lifestyle. And I look at my friends on Facebook, and clearly I have friends that obviously their Facebook pages do not have a lot of African Americans. And, I got into this discussion with one guy and he just went on this, well, he was reaching for a gun and you didn't see this and we don't know what happened. And he brought up that
same narrative.
Yeah, brought up that stupid fact that, more white police officers or white men were shot and killed by the police. And I'm like, well, that's because there's more white people in general, on this earth. And then I also shot back at him. I said, if you want to talk about a stat, why don't you look at the less than 1% of police officers, white, black, Hispanic, male, female, are actually prosecuted. Less than 1%. And I bring it back to the fact is that the only person that's perfect in this world is the Almighty Jesus Christ. So if we live by that premise, we are all flawed as human beings. So I don't understand why people seem to think that law enforcement is the only profession that is immune to people that, that sin and that have issues and, just like we do every day. It's just disturbing.
Very disturbing. And that ninja in the chat room says the lowlife coward was screaming he's got a gun as he was pulling the trigger. And even after the first shots, they were still screaming, stop resisting. After they're shooting and screaming, stop resisting. I mean, it was Louisiana. I know we got the Southern twang going, and I don't want to start using terms, but, people got to get trained properly, and police departments around this country are really going to have to start doing something about this, man, because this is not going to end well, man. This is just getting ridiculous. And Reg, I think this one, when I looked at that the one in Louisiana, and I got a story up here from the Daily Beast, and I'll just read very quickly from it, people. Abdullah Mulafi, and I hope I did the last name justice, sat on the beer cooler inside the Triple S Ford Mart that he described what it was like to watch his friend killed. He's the owner that Reggie was just talking about, and he says it was a nightmare. I kept expecting to wake up. You know, to sit there and to watch police behave in this type of manner, videotaped, and to continue to get off, we're going to have to, as Doug would say, man, we living in a time. We living in a time. That ninja, or excuse me, Sluggo says, where's the NRA standing behind the right to carry arms? Crickets.
Sluggo said 911 calls are recorded, produce it. Ninja said, true Sluggo. Actually, the fact that they didn't, let's see here. Sorry, they didn't means it isn't helpful to the police. Very true. That's the other thing I had shared with some people. They had talked about, you know, we don't know all the case and we don't know what's going on. And I said, you're damn right, because here's what's going on. In the past, if we didn't have any sort of video footage of this, it would automatically be,
he
right?
He had a gun. He
Yep.
went for my gun. You know, the same narratives that they've played over and over and over. And by the way, some black cops as well.
Right. Now, I want to give you a quick story. Actually, I tried out for the Cleveland police, and this is a while back. But what I found interesting, and I see why these, why they have these issues
Reggie,
with. Yes.
Did you just say you tried out for the Cleveland Police Department?
That's right. That's correct.
One moment. Did you pass the height requirement?
You know what? That's a whole nother story. When I was going to be a state trooper in Ohio, they did have a height and weight requirement and age. So I did.
Wow, and you failed on all three, huh?
Whatever, man. Whatever, man. You know what? I got you last week. You can get me this week. But so here's what I found, and I think is a big problem for the police departments all across the nation or the country. So essentially, Cleveland obviously was an underprivileged area. They gave points, extra credit points, for anyone that lived in the city of Cleveland. Okay, and I'm like, I get it. You know, you want people in Cleveland to represent your community. Okay. They then also gave points for people that were in the military. Okay. So now when you look at that, that's double points. They gave no points for somebody that has an associate's or a bachelor's degree. Now, in my line of thinking, you would want to give somebody credit for going to college because theoretically, in general, when you go to college, you are basically around different people, different cultures, and you just have different life experiences. So that was a problem. So right off the rip, you know, I was going against people that had military and that lived in Cleveland. So you slim down everything, and if you're going for 30 spots and you got 200 people going out, of course you're going to get some of these people that are biggest bunch of degenerates, people that are racist, people that, you know, have never gone anywhere from their mom's backyard or anywhere off of the, you know, out in the country. And then they get these jobs, and then they also want to look for these people that put themselves through military academy already or through the police academy so they can save money. That's why you have problems, because you have lack of diversity and lack of people that have any sort of interaction with any other cultures besides their own, and besides their own racist beliefs or bigoted beliefs or, you know, sexist point of views. And these kids that were punked in high school and middle school, and they decide, I'm going to be a cop and this is where I'm going to land up and get even and get a good job.
Well said, my friend. And, you know, one thing, too, that I want to mention here, and again, you're listening to the Sports and More Show. We're going hot and heavy tonight on XSquadAffiliates.com. Again, XSquadAffiliates.com. You can also hear us on Spreaker.com. That is DJ Dollars and Cents. Reggie Lawrence from out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. I am the sports governor, Vince Wright, out of, I still say the great state of Minnesota, but with a lot of shame on our face tonight. And we got to do the right thing. And Reggie, that leads me into some, I will say, some positive news that has kind of come out of the situation here in the Minnesota shooting today with Philando, Castile. First off, I got to give it up for Governor Mark Dayton. Let me give him a little round of applause here. He broke it down real. He broke it down real. And he said, you know what? If that was me in that car or my family, that wouldn't have happened. And that is finally straight talk from a politician. And look, to be honest, the sports gov hasn't really ever been a big fan of the political gov of this state. But like I said, I tip my hat. The crowd stands up because the gov, you know, it's going to take people like that to finally start acknowledging this nonsense before things can even begin to hope to change, Reggie. That was a big move by Mark Dayton, the Democratic governor here in Minnesota today. I hope people can see through some of their political beliefs and just realize it is what it is, because the governor is right. If that was, you know, by the way, Mark Dayton comes from a very rich family that owned the Dayton department stores. If you're familiar with Detroit, you may have heard of Dayton Hudson department stores. That's that family. And by the way, his family started Target.
And wow, I didn't know that.
To this day, yeah, the governor of Minnesota's family started Target. Still owns a big chunk of Target. And, you know, it's going to take those folks to acknowledge the realities in these streets out here, Reg.
Well, hopefully he's not just doing lip service, because, you know, a lot of times these, governors, mayors, police chief, you know, they may say one thing, and then when push comes to shove, next thing you know, they're not getting charged for it, or the police are getting, you know, let off or whatever. And I'm also just going to stress that I don't want to necessarily make it a 100% racing. It's a power thing, too. And we all know that absolute power absolutely corrupts. So it's a bad mix when you have these people that potentially are racist, but you also have these people that have a lot of power and just not trained well, not educated. And then all of a sudden, you know, you get on these streets and it's no holds barred. And to be honest, this is the only profession that you can play God. What I find interesting, Vince, is that I'm a pharmaceutical rep, and people don't realize the reason why also, you know, your premiums are so expensive and operations are expensive and things like that is because we're also one of the few countries where you could sue a doctor who is really trying to help you out. And if they make a mistake or there's an accident, you could sue a doctor if they kill you or if they maim or do something. I don't know if you're aware, the most sued practice is OB-gynecologists, okay? Or these doctors that, you know, deliver the babies. Their malpractice insurance is so high because they're sued so often. And it's just crazy that these other individuals take lives on purpose or with disregard and no lawsuit. But meanwhile, doctors who've been sworn to protect us and do their best get sued at the drop of a dime if they, you know, something happens or there's a mistake that's made.
Absolutely. Well said, my man. And let me get into the chat room here first, because we got a couple new attendees on the Sports and More show tonight. Again, if you want to call in after the break, you can hit us up at 651-968-0124. I'll get that number in the chat room as well. But first off, let me start with the one and only Reginald's better half. The slightly taller better half, by the way.
She's not taller than me.
All right, but let's give it up for Reggie's gal, Carla. Carla for the win, the big Michigan fan in the house with us. What's up, Carla?
Hold up. You know what, Vince? I want to commend you on something, all right? Normally, your ass plays Switzerland. I'm glad that you finally making a stance and saying something, because you normally tap dance your ass through the whole show and don't say
tap
nothing.
Dance.
Yeah, man.
I dance a little jig for you, huh, son?
I didn't say that.
Dance a little jig for you.
No. I call Carla Switzerland.
River.
You just try to play neutral and you let me take the shots and say what people think.
Me home.
I never even went there. See? All right, man. Hit the chat.
Anyway, hey, you know what? Vince Wright is a very mellow dude. You know, I'm a 6'5", as the ladies called me back in the day, the gentle giant. And yeah, I get that. But hey, do not ever mistake people. My nicety, my kind of calm demeanor on issues like this, because I'm pissed off. I got a son out there in them streets. I got a daughter who's becoming a teenager out there as well. I'm in these streets, and you guys are in these streets. I care about all of us. And we shouldn't have to be worried every time 5-0, the poeple passes us, and